Hello, everybody. Welcome to Max on Color, and thank you so much for joining me today. And happy October to everybody. And I hope that you're all doing well. And who's ready to learn some magic bullet looks today? Well, if you are been asking yourself how to use magic bullet looks, or if you've been playing around with magic bullet looks but still have questions about how to use it, what each tool is actually doing, what is actually color handling, what is the working space of magic bullet looks, I hope your questions about that will be answered today. So if you're curious about magic bullet looks and how you use it, and maybe by attending this sessions, probably it can inspire you to work differently with magic bullet looks, right? And I saw in the comment some people was already there, and Tube later is asking if Maxon should do a comprehensive guide about working a color workflow from Photoshop to Cinema 4D or any similar stuff like that. Yeah, thank you so much for that. I will definitely forward that to the Cinema 4D team, and perhaps it can be a very nice webinar in the future. Thank you so much. And yeah, let me share my screen before we start. Alrighty. So, okay. If you really want to follow the webinars that is hosted by Maxon, you can go to maxon.net/events. So by going to that page, you can see all the events that is hosted by Maxon. So for example, there was a conference, apparently, a film festival, film competitions, apparently, last Tuesday, I guess. Yes, last Tuesday. And there is also a new series in Demystifying Post-Productions, and all about the spooky scene workflow. So if you want to create some nice Halloween surprise content, and please feel free to tune in to the webinars. And 711 EO said hello in the chat. Hello back. Thank you for joining today. And if you're new to the show and you want to get freebies, you can get a one free t-shirt. That is by going to the merch store. And the merch store, you can see the link in the screen. And let me paste, copy and paste the screen, the link into the chat. So you can follow that link, and please enter the code Spooky Renders, all capital. Let me just write into the chat, Spooky renders. There you go. So by using that code, you'll be able to get one of this t-shirt, and all you need to do is just pay the small shipping cost. But the t-shirt is for free. Okay, let me hide that. And by the way, this session is also recorded. So does the other webinar hosted by Maxon Training Team. All of those webinars are recorded and then hosted in Maxon Training Team YouTube channel. So if you want to rewatch the webinar, or if you want to visit some interesting topics, you can. You can simply go to YouTube and type in Maxon Training Team, and you'll be good to go. And those recordings are also timestamped, so you can just like navigate really easy to the topic that you really like. Okay, so that's for the housekeeping. And today we want to learn more about Magic Bullet. So probably you've been working with Magic Bullet before, and I think I've been showing a lot of Magic Bullet workflows in this channel. And mostly I'm showing the workflow, how you can pair that with Resolve or with Premiere Pro when you are color grading. But actually, Magic Bullet is available in many multiple hosts. So for example, you can use Magic Bullet in Cinema 4D, you can use Magic Bullet in Unreal Engine, or you can use Magic Bullet in I think the 3D applications is that Cinema 4D and Unreal Engine. And then for the nonlinear editor, you can find Magic Bullets in Premiere Pro, Avid Media Composer, I think Hit Film even. If somebody still use Hit Film, you can also use Magic Bullet Looks there. And also DaVinci Resolve and Premiere Pro and Final Cut Pro, and mostly all of the NLEs. And so what is Magic Bullet really? And the definitions of Magic Bullet can really vary, depends on how you use it. So let me share again my screen. And for example, when you are using Magic Bullets, so for example, if you're using Magic Bullets in Cinema 4D, for example, let me just like render this. Magic Bullet is available in Cinema 4D. So if you are rendering your scenes, if you render it to Picture Viewer, you can later on send it to Magic Bullet directly. So you don't have to, send or export the render to any NLE or compositing program. If you just want to spice it up, you can use it inside Cinema 4D right away. So if you're using it like this, it feels like, Magic Bullet is just a post-effects filters that you can spice up your renderings. Well, you can kind of like argue that it is post-effects filters, but it is way much more than that, especially if you start using it for your compositing or your color grading. But let me just show you how you can use Magic Bullet Looks in Cinema 4D. So let's wait until we get our render done. And it's almost there. All right, this is a scene that the training team created during one of the Demystifying Post-Productions webinar. No, I think it was Ask the Trainer. I think we just like having fun and somebody else says model it. I think Ian started with sculpting, and then Jonas add some like the hands and legs and so on. And then after that, Ellie add the lightings and everything, and then I graded it. So if you want to add some like spices to your rendering, you can do that by pressing this button over here. So it's like a send to Magic Bullet Looks button. So what is nice is that when you are setting your, let me make like a full screen. So if you have set up your color management inside Cinema 4D, you don't have to redo your color management setup inside Magic Bullet Looks, because Magic Bullet Looks will just read all the setup in Cinema 4D and give you the correct input and give you the correct output again. And in this case, the input and output is set up into ACES CG, which is like the default of the color management setup in Cinema 4D. right? So here you can start playing around with the tools. Don't worry, I'll break down all these tools later on. But this is like one way you can use magic bullets. You can also start using the how do you call it, presets, for example, or anything that you really like, right? Because it comes with over 300 presets. We'll talk about that later. So the other way, the other way you can use magic bullets is that when you want to use it in your compositing. So for example, if you have a compositing in After Effects, so this is a scene that was made by Alexandru for his presentations at IBC. But in this scene, he was like presenting the topics that you can use magic bullet not only for color grading, but you can also use it for iterating your design. So for example, you can use magic bullet to so for example, oh, one more thing before we move on is that now in this newly updated magic bullet, in After Effects, magic bullet will also behave exactly the same like in Cinema 4D. So if you are setting up your compositing in After Effects in OCIO ACES, you don't have to redo the color management inside Magic Bullet Looks. So it's just like pick up whatever the setting, the color management settings in After Effects, if it's in ACES, and it will give you like the correct input and the correct output back. So you can use magic bullets in After Effects. For example, you can grade your scene in After Effects with magic bullet looks, absolutely. But you know what? You can also iterate your design. So for example, here, by using a two-strip process, now it is like adding red in yellow and then also adding green in blue. Now we have like this looking image. And then after that, if you are playing around with a green sensitivity, you can kind of like make every other color in the background white, right? So if you can confirm this, then you'll have like this type of like setup. And from here, the world is your oyster, right? So especially if you're pairing Magic Bullet Looks with a lot of like universe tools, it's really fun. So for example, what he did, he can like, you can try to use unmult from universe. And what unmult do is actually it is removing all the blacks in your image. So in this case, we don't have any blacks, but we can remove the white by inverting the unmult. And then now we get like this type of result. And from there, you can pair another tools from universe that is Multitone. If I can write it correctly, Multitone. There you go. What Multitone does is that it gives you a color scheme. So you can choose either if you want to use duotone or tritone. So in this case, I use tritone, and then you can start to pair like start to color the highlights of your image, and you can also pick specific color for the midtones and then also the shadow. And it also comes with a lot of presets. So for example, you can just like follow, you can also choose any of these presets available, or we can just leave it in default. And then after that, we can also pair it with optical glow, for example. And just by doing that, you got like you get like a fancy result in a very fast. So in this case, you can use magic bullets to be paired with any other universe tools to get like iterations in your design, right? So let me check the chat. Umesh is asking if I want to show Magic Bullet Looks and grading. Absolutely. After this, I'll show you Magic Bullet Looks and grading. How to get cinematic looks on Magic Bullet. Absolutely. We will take a look at that as well. And 711 is mentioning that Magic Bullet Looks is his favorite plugin for color grading. Bravo, man. Thank you so much. Awesome. So let us go to Premiere Pro. Don't worry, I will be also showing DaVinci Resolve right after this. But before showing how you can use Magic Bullet Looks in grading, let's see the UI of Magic Bullets. The tools, what are the tools, and all the UI. Let me help you to understand all the interface because it is the same everywhere. So if we are doing it in Premiere, it should be the same in Resolve. It should be the same in After Effects and everywhere else. So let me close After Effects. And let me start Premiere Pro. Okay. There you go. Now I'm in Premiere Pro. I have a bunch of clips. And this is like just a Rec 709 clips. And I have one log clip. I think it's ARRI log C clip. But I also have like a one timeline that is comprised of, sorry, let me just reset everything. So I have one timeline that consists of a lot of log C materials there. But for the beginning, let us understand Magic Bullet Looks first. And let's see Magic Bullet Looks in actions later on. Let's understand it first, okay? So in Premiere Pro, if you are typing bullet in the effects panel, you'll get all the tools that is available inside Magic Bullet Looks. So there are Colorista, Cosmo, Denoiser, Film, Mojo, Renoiser, and Looks itself. Looks is kind of like the flagship tools. So all of these other tools are also available inside Magic Bullet Looks. Okay, so with Magic Bullet Looks, it gives you a lot of flexibility. You can use Magic Bullet Looks in clip level. You can also use it in the group level, or you can use it in the adjustment layer in Premiere Pro. I'll show you that type of like a approach later on. But now let's see the interface of Magic Bullet Looks. So if I press Edit in my effects panel, I will be forwarded into the into the interface. So now, if you pay a close attention into the interface, it's very simple, guys. Like you have like a massive viewer in the middle, okay, and then you have like your tool chain right below the viewer, and you have 4 different tabs. The first tab is Looks, and then the second tab is Scopes. So if you just hover over it, it will open. But then if you move your cursor away, it will close again. But if you see that there are 4 tabs: Looks, Scopes, Controls, and Tools. There is a really nice and handy shortcut for all of these drawers. So if you press L for Looks, it will open and pin the Looks drawer, right? It comes with a lot of preset. It has like over 300 presets. So if presets is your thing, if you just want to like quickly shop for presets, you can do that. What's nice with this presets is that there's like this search bar, right? What's nice is that you can type in, like, for example, if you enjoy any other, like if you enjoy a lot of like different movie, you can type in movie, for example, movie title. Maybe if you type in Matrix, is there any Matrix? You see, there are 2 presets that, you know, in that directions. And like, for example, if I like to watch like Euphoria, there is apparently 1 preset just like that. Or if you want to do like a music video, if you like music videos, or for example, if you just want to create something in the music video directions. For example, my favorite artist is The Weeknd. Let's see if there is any The Weeknd inspired look. There are apparently, you know. That is how you can use the the presets in Magic Bullet Looks. And in this release, I think last month release, there are new presets. So there are film emulations presets. So there are 5 film emulations presets. Let's download this. Download fail. What is happening here? Okay, but just to show you, there are 5 different film emulations presets they can use to start your grade. And there is also like this looks that is based on, how do you call it? Movies. Like for example, this as Euphoria. And by the way, for this euphoric looks, it comes with a new LUT. And just a words of warning, and by default, it is the LUT gamma is set to sRGB. If you want to get the best result, set it to ACES CC or ACES CCT, because it was developed for ACES CCT gamma. So, for example, if you read the name, it says the name, and then at the end it mentions ACES CCT. So if you are working with how do you call it, ACES, for example, here, if we go to color mode, ACES CCT and preview in Rec 709, output is Rec 709, and the LUT, now you can really see that, the input space is sRGB, output space is sRGB again. You don't want that, because in the LUT it's already set ACES-CCT. So use ACES-CCT instead, and you'll see that you got a better reproductions of the image, because it was intended for how do you call it, the ACES-CCT. But let's talk about the color handling later on, the color managements later on. Okay, let's set it back into one color handling. So it's just like the default. So input is sRGB and output is sRGB, or you can change the input is Rec 709, which is more correct in this case. Okay, and output is Rec 709. Whoop. Alrighty. So those are the new presets, and also there are also like the new music videos presets. Where is it? There are utility presets, for example, new utility presets. And I think there are some new music video excitements. There you go. Those are new presets as well. So if you have Magic Bullet Looks, play around with that and let me know how you like it. Okay, so there you go. That is the music video. So that is one. That is another, which is I still don't know why I cannot download it live. But, play around with it. You should be able to access that. So that is the looks, right? So you can use any of these presets to jumpstart your how do you call it, grade. So for example, if you choose one of the presets that in film emulations category, you can kind of like have a good base if you want to make your footage to look a little bit more filmic, right? Because it is utilizing a film print profile, and in this case it is using Fuji film print 3521, and then it is also using a negative of this particular stock. There are plenty of different stocks here. So if you're using these presets, please don't just like use these presets and call it a day. Although you can absolutely do that, but play around with this. So try to maybe like, I don't know, increase something perhaps in the shadow. Let me just increase like a blue tint, and then warming up the midtones, so it kind of like giving you like this warmer highlights and cooler shadow type of things. You can absolutely do that. So this preset is just like a head start for you, right? You can like tweak to your liking. So that's how you can use Magic Bullet Looks presets. And the shortcut to open the presets, again, L, and you will be able to open and close looks. And what is also nice is that if you finish creating a looks and if you want to save it, you can also do that by clicking this particular arrow here, down arrow. So if you click that, oh, I think my camera is blocking you to see the presets. Okay, let me just change this. Right. So if you want to save any presets, if you are like finished creating something, you can just press this down arrow. You can give it a specific name and you can choose any folder that you like. And then if you do that, it will appear in this custom looks folder that you dedicate for your particular presets, right? That's the looks. And as you notice, if you select any of these tools, you can really see, you can see the controls of these tools on the right-hand side. And the shortcut for this drawer, the control drawer, as you may already guess, is C for control, right? So you can close and open it, but you can also click any tools and it will be opening the controls tools, the control drawers. And then about the scopes, you can open the scopes by pressing S, right? So S to open the scopes. And there are a few scopes that you can use inside Magic Bullet Looks. The RGB parade, the hue and saturations, slice graph, hue lightness, and memory color. Let's just start one by one. Also, this scopes are rescalable. So if you're like scaling the window of Magic Bullet Looks, these scopes will follow accordingly, right? So if you want to see a bigger scopes, you can do that. And you can also twirl the scopes down. So I think you already know RGB parade. It's the standard. It's similar like the one in Resolve and in Premiere. It's the same. And hue and saturations. So you probably already guessed what hue and saturations, right? Hue and saturations is the vector scope. So it is showing you the level of saturations of your image. So for example, here, if I'm using Colorista, and if I desaturate my image, you can really see that. Let me just put Colorista right at the back. So if I desaturate it, or let me just drop everything. There you go. So if I desaturate, you can really see that there is no more the strength. There you go. So as I desaturate my image, you can really see that the signal in the scope is getting smaller and smaller, right? So as I pump up the saturations, the signal is getting bigger and it is reaching the limit of the scopes, right? You're probably wondering why by default it is already like reaching the limit of my scopes. That is because it is not showing you the 75, it's not showing you the 100% of the scopes. It's similar in Resolve. Like for example, in Resolve, you can set up the vector scope to be only showing the 75% area or the 100% area. And in this case, the hue and saturations or the vector scope inside Magic Bullet Looks is showing you the 75% safe zone or what is called the safe zone or the 75% area. Okay, so in case you are hitting the limit, means that you're not really clipping the color. And the slice graph. Probably slice graph is the most misunderstood scopes out there. Slice graph is actually a waveform, but instead of showing you the full-blown waveform, it is giving you a sample point. So for example, if you notice here, there's like this yellow arrow. And as I close slice graph, the yellow arrow here in my viewer is also gone. As I open it, as I open slice graph, you'll see that I have a yellow arrow here. It means that it is just sampling one line of your image. So imagine this yellow arrow is drawing a virtual line across the image. So for example, here, if I am putting it right down towards somewhere there, her face, you can really see that now the line is now sampling this area. So her face is somewhere over there. And you can really see that the skin tone, the red is higher than the green and the blue is lower than the green. So it is kind of like giving you like this one specific line for sampling. This is particularly nice, for example, if you want to just sample to see the sky, if the sky is blue, or one particular area here, if like this black car is hitting 0 or not really. So if you crush the black or not, you can really see that like this particular black point here, you can see that it is not reaching 0. You're good, you're safe. Okay. And the next one is the hue and lightness. I, to be honest, hardly use hue and lightness. And the stuff that I like the most is the memory color. So memory color is it's like a simplified versions of your image, right? So for example, orange color will be just shown as pure orange. Green color will be shown as pure green. So it means that if you see like a green color in the foliage, means that you're good. Your foliage is still green. And if you see like a red color here in the flower patch, means that you changed nothing. The flower is red and the majority of the skin color is orange. You're good. So for example, if I do perhaps like if I do a hue rotations, like if I'm doing this, you can really see that now my skin tone is not how do you call it, in the safe zone, in the normal how do you call it, skin tone, perfect skin tone color anymore. So it is more in the magenta, so it's not really like showing the correct skin tone. So for example, I also rotate the hue so much, and that makes my green foliage becoming a little bit redder, a little bit orangier, so to say. And as you can see in the viewer, it is the case, right? So that's how you can use memory color. I think it's a good scope that you can use to do the sanity check. How is my grade? Is my grade doing fine? Is it change? It is changing skin tone much? I normally love to pair RGB parade and hue saturations, but it's just me, right? I mean, depends on how you use it. 7-Eleven asking, are there any presets that resemble the look of Batman movies? I think at the moment there is none, but you know, if you know how to, if you read enough how the movie, the look was created, I think you can try to, you know, to get closer into that particular look. Of course, first thing, like if you want to recreate that look, you better be, you know, getting the photography right. And then after that, you can create a look on top of that. I think in YouTube, there's like a talk show with Dave Cole and Matt Reeves, and they're like really breaking down how did they get the look. So I think it was a film in digital, and then after that it's scanned back to film, and then they do DI in the film, and then after that rescan back, I think until film intermediate, and then scan back into digital. I wonder if that how the pink ladies in the Guardian of the Galaxy were colorized. Oh, probably. I think you can just simply like rotate the hue, right? But I think the majority of the looks coming from the show LUT, for example, probably the colorist and then the DP is working together, and then they probably create some sort of like a show looks, be it in any format, but normally it is in the LUT format or any type of format that they use, that they, you know, do any like hue rotations. You can also do a hue rotations and resolve and bake it as a LUT, right? But I don't know if that was like the exact things that they were doing. but you can do that. Okay. So where were we? Scopes, right? S for scopes. And now the final drawer is the T for tools. Right. So there are 4 different category in the Magic Bullet tools. The first one is selective tools. And the way you can try to understand selective tools is that, when you are on set and you want to like flag some area or just add some exposure or contrast, those are like the tools that you can find in selective. So this is like light related, like relighting tools. And then there are camera tools. And camera tools, think of it as a filters that you attach on your camera, or any photography techniques like dragging the shutter or something like that. Those are like the effects that you can recreate with the camera tools. And then the color correction tools, your lift, gamma, gain, shadow, midtone, highlight kind of like tools. And you have like LUT tools as well. And then finally, you have your film emulation tools. So let's take a look of these tools, okay? Kayo mentioning, lovely, I love Magic Bullets. Thanks, man. Backs to Pro presets again to download. Alrighty, have fun. So the first thing, before we start digging, understanding these tools, I want to talk a little bit about the, the color handling, the tool chains, right? First thing, when you opening Magic Bullet Looks, the first thing that you need to do is that you need to set the color management, right? So if you are mostly working with a Rec 709 images or image that is already in your display color space, you can just use 1D color handling because it is like the easiest. What it does is actually it takes your Rec 709 images and map it to linear color space. So all the tools that is related to light will be processed in linear gamma. And then after that, the tools that related to any color corrections will be processed in log. And you don't have to do that like extra. Magic Bullet Looks already like calculating it for you. So you can just like be secure. Okay, my input is Rec 709. I want Rec 709 out. So everything that happens in between will be handled by Magic Bullet Looks, right? So for example, if you just want to drop down your exposure, it will look nice because your exposure now is handled in linear colors, linear floating point instead of like the normal color space. Right? So I'm repeating myself. Okay. The first tool is the exposure, right? And then I think you kind of like already know what an exposure tools is. What is nice in the exposure tools is that it is read in stops. So if you're working with a cinematographer, for example, you can just like you can work together, and the cinematographer can just say, it's like, hey, I want to add my exposure just one stop up or one stop down, and you can kind of like working in that fashions, right? And the next one is the contrast. And what's nice with the contrast tools here that you cannot find in any other tools, like in Colorista, like any other tools inside Magic Bullet Looks, I mean, is that it is including the pivot point. So you can kind of like adjust your contrast and take the pivot point. Pivot point is like where the contrast start to take effects, right? It's like the middle point of your contrast adjustment. So contrast is like adjusting your highlight and your shadow, and the pivot point is like the middle point between the area that is got affected. And then by using the contrast and contrast and pivot tools, you can also adjust the exposure compensation. So for example, if you just want to use contrast and you just want to add a tiny exposure bump, you can also use the exposure compensations. You don't have to create another tools. But if you like to use another tools, I normally like to use another tools. And for example, I like to do my contrast before, and then I love to do my exposure after. So you can also do that, and it is easily visible. So anytime you see the tool chain, you can kind of already see that, okay, I have my contrast adjustment, and then I have my exposure adjustment, and then output back to Rec 709, right? And the next one is the black and white tool. And I think this is like very underrated tools. What's nice with this black and white tools is that it's similar to when you are using a color mixer or channel mixer, and then make your image monochrome. It's similar of doing that. By using black and white, you, how do you call it? You get a black and white image, and on top of that, you can add some kind of like color filter in front of it. So, for example, you're probably already familiar with the black and white photography. Normally, if you have landscape, use like a red filter to darken the blue sky. You can kind of like create that type of effects, like by swinging the component balance here, and then maybe change the luminosity of the color itself, like that. Okay, so that's the black and white tool. Busnut is mentioning, man, I've been overlooking looks for a month while using Magic Bullet. Now I'm excited to look into it. I'm heavy Renoiser user. Oh, nice. I love Renoiser, man. Let's talk about Renoiser later, okay? I'm a big fan of Renoiser as well. Gradient tools, it's like this gradient, you can, it's similar to the power windows in Resolve. You can create a power windows, gradient power windows. And in this case, you can add color right away to the gradient. So for example, if you want to do this, you can do that. What's also nice is that you can just desaturate the color. And if I just want to change the, if I just want to darken my, like a left-hand side, and I can just use that. I can just like do my gradient window just like this. So it's like you can use this tool to like very broadly dodge and burn your image, right? That's the gradient tool. And the gradient exposure, as you can already see, it's similar to what I showed before, but it's just the same, it's similar tools like before. And spot exposure, it gives you like this a very nice round power window, so to say, a circular window. And then after that, you can target the area in the middle. So for example, here, if I just want to drop the exposure just by one stops, and it's kind of like dropping the exposure just by one stop in the center of the image. What you don't know probably is that you can invert it. Bam. So by pressing the invert button to on, you can kind of like create a vignette effects without using the vignette tools. So what's also nice is that you can control all this, how do you call it? The locations of this, the positioning of this window. And you can also change the fall off, right? Or you can change the aspect ratio of the window itself. Okay, so it's similar. If you've been playing around with Resolve power window, it is similar to the circular window. Okay, and the next one, let me press T for tools. The next one is fill light, and fill light, it is like, when it is like adding a fill light to your scene. What's nice is that, let me open my scopes, is that as I increase my fill, it's not attacking my my highlight and my top midtones area like directly. It is starting from the bottom of the image, right? So if I put my fill light up, you can really see that the black points start to get lifted, and the lower midtone of my area is also affected, as you can see in the RGB scopes. But it is not the same as like if you're doing Colorista, for example. Let me just disable this. If I'm doing Colorista, if I'm just like lifting my shadow, as you can see, like my how do you call it? I affected a lot more area with my shadow wheel. So it is a slightly more controlled wheel inside the fill light. So similar, I think it's similar to the lock wheel in Resolve, right? So here, as you can see, our white point is not moving whatsoever, or our highlight is not moving whatsoever, okay? But with the shadow wheel, our highlights is moving, but our white point is not. So that is fill light. So for example, if you want to do this, you can do like, I'm adding a contrast a little bit. No, this is exposure. What are you doing, Max? Okay, let me just do this. I can just add contrast a little bit, just like that. And if I feel like I just want to lift the shadow area a little bit, I like what is happening with the highlights, but I just want to lift my shadow a little bit. I can just like add fill light. Perhaps I can add it before and just lift it up slightly. Okay, that's how you can use fill light. And then spot fill, it's similar like the how do you call it, fill light, but fill light will be like affecting the whole area of your image. Meanwhile, the spot fill is only affecting the area that you are targeting. And in this case, it's just the middle part of our image. Okay, so like this, if I just want to, like, for example, move it somewhere over here, and it is just like targeting the area inside the window. Okay, and that is the fill light, spot fill. And shadow and highlights, it's like a tool that you can target like your shadow and highlight in the window in the same tool. So for example, if you want to drop down your shadow slightly and you want to lift your highlight, so it's like adding a contrast, or maybe you can also drop down your highlight slightly. You can use shadow and highlights. Okay, what's nice is that with all these tools inside Magic Bullet Looks, every single tool has their own strength slider. Okay, so for example, if I want to use like the shadow and highlight, drop the shadow, drop the highlight, and I just want to use a very teeny tiny little bit, I can just use that. I can use the strength slider slightly, before, after. So it's very minute. Okay. And the next set of tools are the camera tools. This is my favorite tools, the optical diffusions. And optical diffusions is like, it emulates the, how do you call it? A lot of like the fusion filter. So if you're familiar with a Tiffin Black Promise, for example, or Schneider filters, this tools is like emulate just that. So you can play around with all this, how do you call it, control. You can change the density of the haze, or you can change the size. Maybe you want to have a lot of like a big size type of diffusions happening, but it's very less density. You can also emulate that, and you can also emulate glow with that. Okay. But what's nice with this tools is that it comes with a lot of presets. So for example, if you're shooting with a DSLR and you normally put a Black Promise filter in front of it, you can kind of emulate that. So for example, here I have Black Promise 1/4, and I can add that, and I can and I can adjust the strength. So for example, if I just like half of it, I can do that. And there are plenty of those diffusion filters. So read more about diffusion filters and play around with these presets and find which one do you like. Okay. And what's special about diffusion filter is that it is developed like this tool, diffusion filters and the halations. Both of these tools are developed using the 3D rendering principle called the energy conserving. It means that it is not generating its own source of light inside your image. So like, for example, in halations, if I pump the halations like to the extreme, right, it doesn't change the overall exposure of my image. So it is just using the available light in your image and just working with that. And it is similar with the diffusions filter itself, right? Doesn't matter like how high I push it, and always it is respecting the amount of light on your image. And what's nice is that about diffusion filters here, it comes with a different quality. So if you want something fast, just use fast, and productions is somewhere in the middle. But if you have like a heavy beefy machines, you can use best or extreme. I mean, normally I just use productions, but if I want to render my image at the end, I switch it to best or extreme to get like the best result. Okay. And the next tools is clarity. And clarity is adding a, how do you call it, local contrast of your image, right? So if you want to add like texture, you can do that. And if you want to reduce texture in your image, you can also do that. Okay. So it's very simple to use. Only one slider, just the clarity slider. And oh, I jump around. I'm using the color correction tools. I should show you the star filter tools, right? And the star filter is a tool to generate star effects. At the moment, it's not showing any difference because I don't have like a highlight, like intense highlight in my image. Like for example, here, if I use Magic Bullet Looks in this image, I probably can show you the star filter right away. So star filter, boost it. What is happening? I don't know. There you go. Now, okay. So I just need to lower my threshold. And there you go. So apparently the threshold was set too high, so it's not reading the highlight. So what it is doing is actually it is giving you like this star artifacts in your highlights. And to some certain aesthetics, it could be like the effects that you want to, and it is doing just that. And what's nice is that you can also color the effects. So for example, if I want to make it reddish, if I want to make it greenish or bluish, it's up to you. Okay, that's star filter. And the next one is the chromatic aberrations. And what's nice with the chromatic aberrations here, it's already how do you call it, coded like how you want it. So for example, if you want red aberrations, just slide it to the left, you got like red. And if you want to have cyan, slide it to the right, and you got like the cyan. So you can pair, like for example, if I just want to have like a cyanist, like chromatic aberrations, I can also do that by mixing like green aberrations there and then mixing it with blue. So something like that, right? Very subtle. And in fact, this is also what actually one of the presets is actually doing is the utility. So for example, here in the vintage detuned lens, so for example, if you want to like recreate like those old 80s or 70s lenses, those lenses normally have like a very slight chromatic aberrations and have like a very slight edge softness as well. And you can kind of like emulate that by using like just this presets, the vintage detuned lens. So before, after, before, after. And as you can see, the middle part of your image remain text sharp, but the edges of your image start to get degrade. All right. And what's also nice is that you don't need to use all these presets in 100% strength. You can always reduce it. Like for example, I just want to use it in very minimal way. So I just set it to around 40, and there you go, just very slightly. And that's how you can like tweak your presets. Just use it to your liking, okay? You don't have to always pump it to 11. But if you want to, you can. Alrighty. The next tool, let me just reset this. And the next tool is, where was I? Chromatic aberrations, lens vignette. I think you already know what lens vignette is. Let's skip that one. And lens distortions. Yeah. So you can have like either like this effects or the other way around. And what's nice is that if you are playing around with the strength slider, you can really see that it is recalculating the effects correctly, and it's halving the amount of the lens distortions that you introduce to your image. And the next one is edge softness, which is I already showed you before in the vintage detuned lens. So it is actually, it's just like picking up, it is using like this circle window, and then it is just softening the area inside this window, okay? But it is leaving the center of your image sharp. And the next one is the swing tilt. So if you have like a landscape image, for example, and you want to make like this toy miniature effects, you can use the swing tilt, and you can adjust the middle point. So for example, if I just want to make his eyes sharp, I can do that. And you can adjust the blur. And what normally people overlook is that you can change the quality of the blur. I mean, 3 is pretty fast. If you have like a normal machine, it's okay. But if you have a strong machines, like a very nice one, you can always like pump up the quality to 10 and just play around with the strength slider. So it is very nice to use. And that is the swing tilt. Haze flare, it is adding haze and flare to your image. This is particularly nice if you adding like haze and flare, and then you mixed it with optical diffusions after the haze and flare. So you kind of like have like the super soft looking image like right away. And in the haze and flare, you can decide if you want to have like this light reflections or not. So in this case, you just have like the haze, and then with the diffusion filter on top of it, like after it. So that's like you can try to emulate as if when you like shooting in a locations where full of haze, and then after that you use the diffusion filter. You can kind of like emulate the effects like that by combining the haze and flare and the optical diffusions and anamorphic flare. So you can also play around with this anamorphic flare tools to generate like this streaky anamorphic flare, like the flares that you normally get from the anamorphic lens. Okay, and you can always change the color of the flare. For example, some generates like a very nice blue. Sometimes you get like a cyanish strike, or maybe you want it to be somehow red. You can do that. And oops, sorry. The next one is that shutter streak. Like this is a one photography techniques. I forgot how to do that, but if you search how to do that, I mean to do like this inside your camera, you can do that. I think it's like heavily used in like Bourne Identity movies. You have like this type of like effects, very obvious. And here you can easily emulate that with a shutter streak, and you can change the size. You can boost it or reduce the boost and change the fall off, of course. And also you can play around with the strength slider to generate this streaky blur on top of and at the bottom of your image. And the next category of the tools is the color correction tools. But I see that, man, we are almost 1 hour already, and we are still explaining these tools. What about if we are, how do you call it, jumping, or I'm picking up just special tools inside this color corrections and film, because I don't think we can respect the time of 1 hour live webinar to cover everything. So if you have any questions of any tools that you want to know, let me know in the chat so I can cover it with for you. Otherwise, I will jump to the another topics, how you can use it when you are color grading your how you can use Magic Bullet Looks when you are color grading your project. Time do fly by. It's so fast. So let me know in the chat if you want me to cover any of the tools that I haven't covered, guys. But in essence, the color correction tools is like a tools that you normally use for color correcting your image. It normally, like when you play around with the lift gamma gain wheels, similar to lift gamma gain wheels in Resolve. In Looks, there is like the shadow, midtones, and highlights that exactly targeting the same area of your image. And then there are also some other tools that comes with that. What if we do this? How about if we continue this tools explanations in the next sessions of Max on Color, and then now I can just show you the workflow of how you can use Magic Bullet Looks in grading scenario, right? Color correction tools, just the tools that you can use for color correcting. LUT, for example, you can load LUT and play around and modify your LUT inside Magic Bullet Looks. And the film emulation tools, so you can emulate film negative or film print inside Magic Bullet Looks as well. So let me just show you some ways you can use Magic Bullet Looks. Okay, so for example, here I have a very short timeline, a very short sequence inside Premiere Pro, where if I want to, I can just grade it using Magic Bullet Looks. I can show you how I approach this type of situations with Magic Bullet Looks. So Red Brown saying, yes, please, we should cover these other tools. Okay. Yes. Alrighty. All right then. I will continue covering these tools, and then I think next 2 weeks we will see how we can use Magic Bullet Looks in grading scenario. Okay. I think that's the better one. Okay, I think that's the better way to learn these tools, because if we're jumping around, I think it will be hard to follow. And for that reason, let me just run over slightly, if you will. I hope you don't mind. Let me just run over slightly, probably 15, 20 minutes, and to explain the tools inside Magic Bullet Looks, okay? And then after that, maybe in 2 weeks' time, we can go and talk about the workflow. I think that's a better idea to do that. All right. Thank you, by the way, Rhett. So let me launch Magic Bullet Looks again. So in this case, I'm using 1D color handling mode in my tool chains. So let's talk about the color management also in next week, because there are plenty to cover. The difference between 1D color handling and ACES Open Color IO color management. Okay, and yeah, let's continue with our tools. The first one that we just briefly touch is the Colorista. Colorista is the tools inside the color corrections category, and it comes with a shadow, midtones, and highlight wheels. It's similar if you're using Lumetri, it's similar to that wheels. It is targeting your shadow. You can bring down your shadow. Notice that when you are bringing down your shadow, your white point is not moving. And you can also targeting your highlights. So for example, here I can like bring up my highlights, and if I want to bring my midtone down a little bit, I can also do that. And if I want to introduce like some color tinge in my image, so for example, if I want to introduce some cool tinge in my shadow, I can just drag the puck, slide the puck points here, the circles in the middle to the blue. And I can also perhaps warming up my midtones by dragging my middle point towards golden color over there in this territory, right? And there's also temperature and tint control. You can warm up your temperature, cooling down a little bit, and the tint, you can tint it to yellow, green or magenta. So if your image is like heavily cast, for example, if you using like a wrong white balance when shooting, your image may come a little bit too magenta, and you can like slide it towards green a little bit to reduce the magenta cast. That's another way you can do that. And the exposure and contrast, it's exactly the same exposure and contrast behavior like what you have with the exposure and contrast tool before, right? So the contrast is moving the highlight and shadow area either close together or further apart. But the thing about Colorista, the contrast in Colorista, is that you cannot specify the pivot point. That's why I sometimes love to use the standalone contrast tools inside a Looks, because it is giving you this pivot point, right? It will be important later on when we are talking about aces. And why? Let's keep that for next 2 weeks, okay? I'll tell you why. And that's contrast and exposure. Hue and saturations, you can kind of like decrease saturations or increase saturations. So the saturation slider is just taking what the whole signal in your image and then either boost it up or boost it down or reduce it, right? And the hue, you can rotate the hue, like all the hue in your image. So for example, I can rotate it to the right and getting like slightly yellowish skin tone. You don't want that. Or you can get it like slightly more magenta skin tone. Sometime that could be the result that you want. Just probably just like a small hue rotations toward magenta can also be like, you know, the stuff that you need to fix the incorrect looking skin tone. And the next one is the HSL wheels here. You're probably wondering, what are those two wheels here? Okay, at a glance, it looks like it's very, I don't know, how do I use it? It looks very complicated, but it is not complicated. And the one on the left, it's you can change your hue and saturations, and the one on the right, you can change your hue and luminance. So for example, if I want to take blue, right, and I want to desaturate just the blue, I can take, let me just, or red, because we have a lot of skin tone here. If I want to desaturate red, I can take like red point all the way to the center, and I desaturate it. And as you can see, his lips is losing the red color, right? I can also like increase the saturations of just the red by like dragging it outside the circle. And then you can also do exactly the same for color, skin tone, by targeting like this orange puck or point. You can like saturate just the skin tone or desaturate just the skin tone, right? And what is nice is that you can emulate the way how saturations behave when you are shooting with film, because normally when you increase saturations in film, normally the more saturated specific color in film, the darker they are. So for example, if you just want to take the red and make it appear a little bit darker, you can just drag this point in the hue and luminance, slightly towards the center, of course, not all the way. And you can also probably do exactly the same with the green and exactly with the blue as well. And sometimes you probably asking, that is too, how do you call it? Too sensitive to be just like dragging this point up and down. Is there any way I can be more accurate with this point? Yes, you can do that by clicking this radio button here. So if you open this radio button, you suddenly have like this point. So for example, if I just want to change my lightness, and I can hover over this red point here. I hope you can still see my cursor. So if I just reduce it, it just reduces it in one axis without, moving it into other, how do you call it, neighboring color, right? So what you can also do is that you can double click this and it will reset that. And what's also nice is that in any of these tools, in any of this wheel, so for example, if I want to make my green a little bit more yellow, I can just like go to the hue and change my my yellow color a little bit, something like that. Or if I want to make my skin tone a little bit reddish, I can take the skin tone color and then slide it towards red, something like that. Or if I want to make my blue slightly cyan, I can also do this, right? And that's how you use the hue and saturation tools. And the next one, let me just reset everything. The next one is saturations by luminance and saturations by saturations. It's called the saturations equalizers. So if you remember, if you're like the 80s or 90s kids, you probably have like those tape, how do you call it, cassette players with a graphic EQ. So this is like exactly what that actually is. It's like your saturations control, but in the graphic EQ type of like interface. So for example, if I just want to desaturate my black points, I can do this. So go by saturation by luminance. So the less luminance you have is like the blacks. So if I just decrease my saturations in my blacks, it means like I'm cleaning my blacks. So there won't be any saturations happening in my blacks. Or if I want to clean my white, I can just like do exactly the outer points there. But if I want to like reduce the saturations, because I think this is mostly somewhere in the midtones, I can do that. I can just decrease the saturation somewhere in this area, and there you go. So it's like a very, how do you call it, targeted area to increase or reduce your saturations. And the next one is saturations by saturations. It means that if you want to reduce like just the overly saturated area, you can go like all the way to the right one and just drag it down. So in case you have like a very colorful image and you just want to desaturate the overly saturated area, you can do that. You can just bring like the rightmost points and bring it down. And then let me reset that. And then the last one, you have like this tone curve, like a curve tool. It's similar like any other curve tool. You can create like an S-curve if you want to. And what nice is that it also comes with a point. So for example, if I just want to move my shadow, you can also use this like area, like the point on the right hand side. And if I want to increase my highlight, I can also do that. And if I want to increase my shadow and highlight like at the same time, you can use the topmost button. You can draw like instant S-curve or instant reverse S-curves right away. And same like any other curve tools, you can target either just the red, green, and blue channel with Colorista curve tool. Red is saying, I do like how this graduated like an equalizer. Absolutely, man. Yeah, it's funky, right? But it's nice. It's more visual, so to say. That's Colorista. And the next one, clarity. I think I already showed you the clarity. It's just one tool, one slider like before, adding up the sharpness or the midtone detail or reducing the midtone detail. Okay, that's the clarity, and like the clarity in Photoshop. The next one is four-way color. You probably, if you see four-way colors, like, hey, what is the difference between four-way color and Colorista? Well, if you're familiar with Resolve, there are two different, like a lift gamma gain wheels, right? You have lift gamma gain and shadow midtone highlights. You have the primary wheels and then the lock wheels. So the one in Colorista, you can think of it as the primary wheel, and the four-way color corrector, it acts more like in the lock wheel. Why? Because you can change the range. So for example, here in shadow, I can change. Like for example here, if you see this curves here, my shadow button and my shadow wheel is targeting this area. So if I want the shadow wheel to just target like only the blacks, I can just drag it somewhere there. So it is like targeting like very limited area. And if I want my midtones to target like mostly just like slightly more, something like that. So you can divide, like you can specify which area that you want to target with this each and every wheels that you have here. And also you can preview it. So for example here, if I want to change my highlights, now if I'm dragging it as I have my preview on, you can really see the white area is the one that is targeted with that particular region. So for example, I can just increase it or just reduce the targeted area only on that area. So if I want to increase my gain, you can really see that it is only targeting that specified area. Or if I want to reduce it, I can only use on that particular area, right? And what is also nice is that you have the global wheel, like the offset wheel. So you can kind of like use this as your exposure tools as well, exactly like the offset wheel that you see inside Resolve as well. So that's a four-way color corrector. And the next one is Hue-Saturations. And this is exactly just the hue and saturations you're seeing inside Colorista, guys. You can change the hue, you can rotate the hue, and then also you have like the component balance, exactly like some other tools that we see before. I think it was in the fill light. No, was it in the spot fill? I don't know. But you know, hue saturations, you can rotate the hue and change the saturations. And then also let's see the component balance. So if I rotate my hue like this, and if I introduce red or any other color, and if I, well, I have to play around with this myself, apparently, guys. So yeah, I really don't know what the component balance is actually doing there, but the hue and saturations, it's doing your hue rotations and then the saturations. Let me know if you know what the component balance is doing there. I would also like to learn from you. Right? The next one is Mojo. Probably you're already very familiar with Mojo. Mojo is like operating in this how do you call it, complementary color scheme. So in this case, you have two complementary colors assigned to two different parts of your image. So if you notice, what we're doing here, we are tinting our highlights and we are also tinting our shadow. And if you see, our highlights suddenly become warmer and our shadow become cooler. So AKA, this is also what normally people call like the teal and orange, or the warm shadow, cool highlight, warm highlight, cool shadow type of situations, you know, because like it's like the one strategy that normally a lot of people been using to make image like pleasing is that to cool down the shadow and then add warmth in the highlight as well. But with Mojo, you can add like the amount of Mojo that you like. By default, the Mojo only come with 50%. and you can change the tint, right? And what's nice is that you can squeeze the blue. So if you squeeze the blue, a lot more area will be like more, how do you call it, more uniform. So for example, here, if you see the jeans, if we squeeze all the way to 100, it is targeting the jeans. If before, at 25%, you have more like difference in the image. So if you want to make your image like very uniform, just like the steel and orange, you can increase the blue squeeze and skin squeeze, right? That's how you do it. And then you also have like bleach. It means like if you add bleach, like you will add like this less saturations and higher contrast to your image, similar to the bleach bypass method that you normally already very familiar with, right? That's Mojo. And LUT. Inside Magic Bullet Looks, you can also use LUT. What's very nice is that, let me just quickly switch to Aces, for example, to show you like the general idea of LUT tools. By the way, it has a lot of LUT coming with it, but I don't know why am I not seeing any LUT here. Let me just something is wrong with my machine today, guys. But normally you see like a lot of like different LUT in the LUT tool. I don't know what is happening today. So 1033. This is, so let me just restart Looks and apply Looks to the clip. Okay, there you go. So for example, you can load your, like, if you use Magic Bullet Looks, it's not either or type of situations. As I will show you in the next 2 weeks, you can modify LUT inside Magic Bullet Looks. So if you have collections of LUT that you really love, normally you have to know when you're working with LUT, you really need to understand what the LUT is actually doing, what type of color space it is asking, and what type of color space it giving you back, right? Because depends of the LUT. Sometimes a LUT can do like a color space transformations, or sometimes the LUT just purely do a creative transformations. So knowing your LUT before like playing around with it, it's like imperative. Please learn more about LUT. And I think we have a show with Nico Fink the other day to talk just about LUTs. If you check the recordings and at Maxon Color in Maxon Training Team, if you check like LUTs, for example, if you type in LUT in Maxon Color playlist, you'll see that. So for example, here, if I want to use any like LUT that I love. So for example, this is like the LUT that Nico created in the last sessions, in the last 2 sessions, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So it's like a film print emulation LUT, but it is only working in Aces. So in this case, we need to move our color management into Aces. More on this topic next 2 weeks, probably, guys. So let me just change it briefly. Okay. So now the LUT probably looks a little bit too heavy, right? But that's normally a good indications that the LUT is like used not in its optimum way. And in this case, the LUT needs aestheticity as a color space, as an input color space, and it will give you an aestheticity color space. It will give you Aces AP1 color space back out. So you need aestheticity in and aestheticity out. So in the LUT tool, you can set aestheticity in the input space and the output space back to the aestheticity. So just by doing that, you can like emulate like the look of 2383 film using your favorite LUT. And I think if you visit the recording of that particular sessions, you can still probably download the LUT, because I think we have the LUT available as a download assets in the Dropbox. So if you like to visit it, okay. That is one way you can use LUT. Let me just revert back into 1D color handling. And yeah, by the way, I moved too soon, moved too quick. So for example, here, let me check another LUT. Something like this, and this is, no, this is sRGB. All right. So for example, if you have LUT, if you want to like combine it with any other different like grading tools, like for example, if I want to add like this color blend, instead of adding the tool after your LUT, try to do that before your LUT or after your LUT, because depends on where you use it, it will give you like a different result. So play around with it, okay? And also in the LUT tool, you can change the strength of your LUT. So you can have like 0%, just 50%, or all the way up, okay? And that's another thing that you can do. What's also nice is that, so for example, if you have like a log clip like this one, and if you want to use any LUT to transform the color space, and this is from ARRI Loxi. I mean, I can also use ACES, for example, guys. Like here, it's very easy. The input is ARRI. I choose like ARRI Loxi, and I want to get like output to ARRI to Rec 709, and I want to preview it to Rec 709 if I want to. But if you don't want to work with ACES, for example, if you just want to work with your LUT, you can do that by switching it to 1D color handling. And this is ARRI Alexa Loxi in, and output will be Rec 709. So at the moment, it doesn't look very correct. I mean, the amount of contrast is correct, but the amount of saturations is not there yet. So you can also use your LUT, for example, to oh, again, I have like this issue. I don't know what is happening. My machine is possessed. Let me reset looks. Bear with me, guys. Again, this is Alexa log 3 to Rec 709. And there you go. You can use ARRI LUT. And then when you're using ARRI LUT, make sure the LUT gamma is according to the LUT is asking. And in this case, it has to be set to ARRI Alexa log C, right? So you can also use LUT to transform your color space inside Magic Bullet Looks if you want to. Okay, so let's move to another tool. And the next tool is Huenity. And Huenity is a tool. It's a secondary tool. You can pick a specific color and make the surrounding color look uniform. Like, you know, it's coming from the word hue and unity. So Huenity. So for example, if I add this wall here, so you can really see that I have like this, how do you call it? The target somewhere there in the middle. So for example, if I widen up the target, now I am making like all the other neighboring color in that target color. So as you can see before and after. So depends. You can like really play around with the sampled area here. And if you just want to play around with the fall off, you can just drag this dotted line, for example, to have like a smoother, how do you call it, sample points, right? That is Huenity. So it is targeting one specific color, and then after that, make the neighboring color in the same uniform color. So the next one is color remap. And color remap, the idea of color remap is that you can take any color and map it to different color. So for example, how do you call it, warning to use these tools is that it comes with the 3 different patches. And this 3 different patches means that your white point is not moving, because your white point will be changed into white, your gray point will be changed into middle gray, your black point will be changed into black. So white, gray, and blacks will not change, but you can still change any other color. So for example, to use this tool, you need to create new color mapping. So in this case, you will have like these 2 patches. The first one, so for example, if you want to target like this red bottle over there, you can do that. And then in the second one, in the second patches, you can use the second wheel here, and you can just maybe change it, something like that. So at the moment, you see that as I'm changing it into magenta, my skin tones follow. What you can do is that you can also create another color mapping and just target your skin tone, and it remains as it is. So before, after. So if you want to change just the bottle, but then it is moving your skin tone color around, you can also just pick the skin tone and lock it to its original color, right? So in this case, it is also changing this bench a little bit. What I can also do is that I can just target the bench and then make it as like the original color. So that's how you use it. And the color model, guys, this is like very important. Here in the middle, you can really see that our image is represented as if this cube is representing our image, and this area in the middle is the signal of our image, right? Is the sample point of our image. So it is like our image is stretched in this like 3D cube. So if you want to move like one point to the other, you can like kind of like doing that with these tools. And what's nice with these tools is that you can do all this process in the JZAZBZ, which is like a more modern versions of LAB color model. If you know your color model things, if you know a little bit of color science, you'll probably love to work with this tool because you can change the color model. So for example, you can also work in RGB, and you can work in LAB, you can work in IPT, YUV, or JZAZBZ. In like my experience, I think leaving it in JZAZBZ or IPT would be like the best. But as anything else in post productions, experiment is still a key. So play around with it, right? The next one is channel mixer. You know it. It's exactly like color mixer in Resolve. So for example, you can change around, you can add a little bit of blue in your red channel, or you can also, for example, if you want to add a red in your blue channel, you can also kind of like do that with the channel mixer. And you can also, another use of channel mixer is that you can create a monochrome image, but then you can change the density of your black and white image, for example, right? So it's like more control instead of just like desaturating your image to 0. And color blend, think of it as putting a color filter in front of your image, right? You can change, like if I want to have like a red color filter in front of your lens, I mean, or green or blue. So you can kind of like use these tools, like for example, if you shoot your scene under a street light, normally it is like very red, right? And if you put like a cyan-ish filter, like this in front of your lens, probably it can like rescue some of the skin tone a little bit better. So it is exactly something like that. The sodium vapor light, that's the word. So if you're shooting a human subject under the sodium vapor light, sometimes the result will be like a little bit too red. You can try to use color blend and set it to cyan, and perhaps that will help a little bit. The next one is Duotone. It's similar to Mojo, but without any extra bells and whistles. So it's just targeting your highlight and shadow. And in this case, you can like make your highlight warm and your shadow cool. And it's exactly like what we did before. And what's nice here, you can adjust the balance. So by default, you have more the balance is more focused in the shadow, more into the highlights. You can also change it like more focus into the shadow or something like that. And S-curve, you know it. It's S-curve tool, like exactly the S-curve that we have in Colorista. And the last category of the tools is the film emulation, guys. So, for example, if you want to emulate, let's use another clip. So if you want to emulate like a clips that was shot with film negative, you can use like film negative, and you have like over I think it's like 20 different, or I don't know, some pretty much it's like a lot of like, yeah, I think 22 film profile. So for example, if you want to emulate as if it was shot with Fuji Eterna 500T, you can use that. And what's nice is that it is also having some controls. So for example, by default, it is coming with grain, but I normally love to put the grain down to 0. And there's like this vintage and modern control. So you can make like as if you are shooting with a fresh film, or you shoot with a film that was like left behind your freezer like for 10 years or something like that. So it start to lose the fidelity, starting to lose the contrast and so on. So you can kind of like can emulate that. And as you know, you can pair film negative with film print. So by default, the film print is set up to Kodak 2383, and you can also play around with the contrast and the exposure, and you can change the vintage and modern. Like if you want to make like, okay, I have a very old Fuji Eterna 500, and this is like the vintage and modern set to -30, but my film print is very fresh, so probably I can make it like around 15, something like this, and perhaps I reduce the contrast slightly, and I can still play around with the temperature and tint, and there you go. You can get like a very nice result. So let's reduce the grain to 0. As you will probably know, I will use Renoiser later on. And say, how do you call it? General rule. Normally, when you're shooting with film, you get like these artifacts. And those artifacts is called halations. And halations is like it's creating like a, how do you call it? Warm glow in the highly contrasted area. So if you see like here, probably like a very thin line between her hat and this black pole here. If I disable it, you can see that like there's a very small sheen of glow, reddish glow that you can see that. I mean, I can also increase the amount, okay, and increase the size. Or if I want to, I can just use the presets. The very obvious one is Vintage 35 or Super 16, like something like that. And if you are shooting with the anamorphic lens, you probably want to emulate this halations effect as if it was shot with an anamorphic lens. And with the Magic Bullet Looks, you can use it. You can do that very easy. Just click anamorphic, and there you go, right? So that is the halations. Very easy to use. Let me reset. And last but not least is that the Renoiser. Before Renoiser, let's do like a print bleach bypass. So you can use any like print bleach bypass tool before or after film print, or this tools is adding the contrast while also slightly reducing your how do you call it, um, saturations. So you can add like the silver retentions to create like more contrast. It's a tool that is inspired by a lab process, the skip bleach process. So when you're shooting with film and then you want to uh, there are specific like plenty of like different type of chemical bath that you have to go through to develop the film. And one of those chemical bath is like a bath that stripping the silver halide content in your film and then replacing it with dye to your film, right? So if you're skipping that process or you're just reducing the time your film spending on that bath, the amount of the silver in your film will vary, right? The less amount you put your film into that bleach bath, and the more silver retent in your film. So this tool is exactly emulating that process, right? The next one, we have like this Technicolor 2-strips process. I think I showed you in the beginning. You can use it like to spice up your compositing even, or you can create like a very nice and subtle 2-strip Technicolor look. But let's drop it. And we can also use absolutely Renoiser, right? Before our film print. And what's Renoiser do is that it's not putting a grain layer on top of your image. It is actually going into the image and creating a virtual grain between your pixels. So like, for example, if I just go into like this very sharp lines somewhere over here, you can really see that if I use like the Renoiser in a Super 8 presets, like very obvious, you know that it is filling your image with this grain. And what's nice is that with this grain, let's put it into modern 35. What's nice with this grain is that you still have the control. For example, you know for sure that film normally have more grain in the blue channel compared to the red and green channel. So here you can really see that the blue amount is way much more compared to the green and the red amount. And that was using the presets modern 35 millimeter film. So you have the total control if you want to have the grain in the red channel amount. You can change the amount in the specific channel, and you can change the size of that particular grain in that particular channel. And then you can also target like the tonality of your image. So you can like add more grain in the highlights if you want to, or reduce grain in the midtone and reduce grain in the shadow if you like to. So only grain in the highlight and midtone is more than the shadow. You can kind of like do that very easy with Renoiser. And then if you want to, you can also sharpen your image while using Renoiser. If you want to, you can use that. So you can slightly sharpen your image using the sharpen tools there if you want to, but I like it to just normally leave it to 0. And last but not least, Telecine Net. So to understand Telecine Net, it's like just understand like this optical diffusion tools. So optical diffusion tools normally add diffusions in your highlights, and Telecine Net is pretty much the contrary. It is adding diffusions in your shadow and blacks point, right? So it is a tool that emulate the process of transferring a film to digital or telecine, but it gives you like this certain artifacts, and you can still do the controls using all the parameters here, right? And like I said before, you can always reduce the strength to your liking. Okay. Finally, the shoulder tools, right? So shoulder tools is that roll off. Okay. So shoulder tools is a simple tool that you can use if you have like a clipping highlights. So for example, let me just add like Colorista at the beginning and just make my highlights like super bright. So using shoulder tools, you can like add that, those like very bright highlights will not pass a certain like a value. So in this case, I set the brightest value to be 1. And if I want to roll off my highlight, it should be rolling off starting from 0.5. So somewhere in the middle of the image. And if I want to, I can start the roll off like a little bit late, or I can start the roll off a little bit early, something just like that. So those are the tools inside Magic Bullet Looks, guys. Is there any questions? Let me check. Red is saying, the order of tools concept is very important. It may take time to understand. Is there a Max on YouTube video on this subject? I think I cover this topic every now and then, Red. But sorry, but if you want to understand the concept, it's like it's no hard how do you call it? Not a rule that is set on stone, for example. But you can always play around with it. And the way I like to use these tools, the way I like to using all these tools, for example, in the film emulations, is to emulate the process of shooting film itself. Like for example, if I have like a digital negative, let's open the log file. So for example, let me go to this one, and instead of working with 1D color handling, let me just work with a ACES. And in this case, yeah, okay. So for example, I know for sure that if I have like a film want to be like printed on film print, normally I can just like, okay, I'll put Kodak 2383. But normally, before you print your digital file into your film print, if you're doing it like right away from like a digital file, I think I read it somewhere in Lift Gamma Gain. I think Alastair Arnold, a colorist from Photochem, once mentioning this, is that if you are like printing like your negative directly to film print, the result is like normally very dark. And you normally do that either like printing it into an intermediate film before, like a negative film, and then after that printing it to film print. So for example, I can emulate that process by, I can choose any of the intermediate film here, like for example, 5219 Vision 3 film. And then after that, printing it into a 2383. And, I got this type of result. And another thing is that to like always play around with it. So for example, the very easy thing is like the exposure and contrast. So for example, here, if I'm dropping my exposure, like let me add my contrast slightly, and I add reduce my exposure by 1 stop. So at the moment, the signal is processed like this. So I have an image, and then after that, I reduce the exposure and I play around. I increase the contrast. The effects is absolutely different if I increase the contrast first and then drop the exposure. You see, like there is like a very tiny like difference that you have. I mean, nothing is like more correct one over the other, but it is like which result do you like it more, right? Alrighty. I think that brings us to the end of our session today. I'm really thanking you so much. Thank you so much, guys, for staying like overtime. We're almost like running for almost 2 hours today. Well, yeah, those are the tools inside Magic Bullet Looks. Let's how do you call it? Let's continue the sessions next 2 weeks. And if you like I already promised you, let me continue the sessions with the workflow. So how you use Magic Bullets in your grading scenario. All right. So we can talk more about using Magic Bullet Looks inside Premiere and using Magic Bullet Looks inside a color managed workflow in DaVinci Resolve. Okay. And if you want to, if you have any questions about this, Brett or anybody else in the chat, please feel free to reach me out. So if you have any particular topics that you want to know about Magic Bullet, reach me out to this email. You can write me to maxoncolor@maxon.net and just write me any type of topics that you want to learn about Magic Bullets or grading, and then after that I can prepare it for the next show, right? And the next thing is that let me just show you this page. All right. Again, if you want to check the events coming up hosted by Maxon, please feel free to visit maxon.net/events. And if you haven't get any free t-shirt, do so. The link is in the chat, but this link is in the chat. And to enter the store, you have to put the code Spooky Renders, and you will be able to you will be able to order one of this t-shirt free of charge. You just need to pay off a small shipping cost. And if you want to rewatch the recording or any webinars recording, it is stored in YouTube. If you go to YouTube, type in Maxon Training Team, you'll see that all the webinar will be there, and it will be timestamped by my dear colleague, Dr. Sasi. Thank you so much for doing that. So with this timestamps, you can go to the descriptions and you can like jump around to different topics. So you can kind of like go to the point straight away. And yeah, I think that brings us to the end of this sessions. I really thank you so much for staying late with me today. That was really nice of you guys. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you in 2 weeks time. And let's talk more about the color grading workflow with Magic Bullet Looks inside Premiere and inside DaVinci Resolve. So until then, I wish you a nice day wherever you are. Enjoy your day and have fun, and see you 2 weeks time. Take care.